Indigenous people in Thunder Bay often report that they feel unsafe in that city. Our Ontario Hub's journalists this week are looking into that and are with us to explain two very different responses to addressing those concerns. So let's welcome, from our studio at Confederation College in Thunder Bay, John Thompson, who heads our Northwestern Ontario Hub, and with us here in studio, Jayan Jagannathan, our Ontario Hub's field producer. Gentlemen, good to be with you again here on TVO. John, I want to start with you because there, of course, has been a considerable discussion in Northwestern Ontario about how many Indigenous people feel unsafe in and around Thunder Bay. For people who are new to this story, and I suspect there will be many watching us right now who are, give us a quick understanding of why this has become such a powerful issue.
Well, about a year ago, there were two First Nations youth from the far north who went missing within 11 days, and their bodies were discovered in the Niebing-McIntyre floodway that runs through the middle of Thunder Bay. And that was in the aftermath of an inquest into 7 youth, some of which also had their bodies found in that river. And that was the catalyst for a giant conversation about racism and public safety in Thunder Bay.
And was there in fact foul play with the, we know about the 7 fallen feathers. Tanya Talega wrote a spectacular book about the original 7, but how about the 2 extra ones that you just mentioned?
The police are saying that there was not foul play in those cases, and I guess the mystery around the deaths and accusation of police mismanagement of those cases has played a major role in the public discussion around systemic racism and around social racism and around public safety for particularly Indigenous people and particularly Indigenous young people. Okay.
Jayan, you were up in Northwestern Ontario in Thunder Bay not too long ago, speaking with Indigenous people there. What can you tell us about what they told you?
Unfortunately, not unique stories we've heard before. One gentleman that I spoke with told me, you know, he had an egg thrown at his face from a moving vehicle. He has witnessed people essentially mocking fellow Indigenous people, belittling them. And seeing all this, and especially with that case of an egg essentially missing him and nearly hitting his eye, he's been a hermit ever since. And he does not feel safe in his community, in his city that he moved into almost a decade ago. And not only is he fearing for his safety, but here he is trying to raise 2 kids, 2 young kids. Another story of a woman I spoke to cited an incident in the simple act of just taking a taxi home. She genuinely felt that she was going to be abducted, that she was so afraid she jumped out of a car.
She jumped out of a moving car?
It was at a stop sign, but she felt she saw the car heading off to a highway, and she was like, "This is not where I'm going. This is not what I said. Where home is."
So she just dashed.
She just dashed.
Wow.
She freaked out. And so, unfortunately, these are some of the stories that I heard. And again, they're not unique to these are some of the occurrences Indigenous people in Thunder Bay encounter on a daily basis.
What is the Bear Clan Patrol?
So the Bear Clan Patrol is a community-based initiative aimed at preventing crime and also providing a sense of safety in the neighborhoods that they patrol. So the organization originated in the early 90s in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and it didn't start to gain traction until the death of 15-year-old Tina Fontaine. As we know, her body was found at the bottom of the Red River. Her body was wrapped in plastic. And you know, the group now has so many chapters across, more than a dozen chapters across Canada, including one in Thunder Bay. And what they do is the patrol group patrols high-risk areas. They hand out food to some of the most marginalized communities, like the homeless. They clean up needles, and they search for missing people as well.
Are they Indigenous or non-Indigenous?
This group is Indigenous, but they also have people who are non-Indigenous as well who are trying to help the situation out.
Okay. John, back to you in Northwestern Ontario. You've got a piece on our website, tvo.org, where you examine 2 different attempts to deal with this problem, including what one of the local First Nations is doing. Bring us up to speed on that.
Well, there are a whole lot of things going on, and so what Jayan's talking about is kind of a grassroots effort. What I'm choosing to focus on is a number of surveillance efforts that are underway or proposed in the city. So the first one is something called unsafe, based on a project called geofencing. And what that does is erect virtual fences, if you will, around areas like the all-Indigenous Dennis Franklin Cromartie High high school, the billets where students are coming from the far north into town to attend school, and also areas like the mall, the movie theater, a number of liquor stores are on there, to try to give an impression of student movement and habits. And that's been a 5-month pilot project that's wrapping up shortly. The other project is Thunder Bay is embarking on an Infrastructure Canada challenge called the Smart Cities Challenge, and that is a proposal that would be $10 million in its brass tacks. It would increase Thunder Bay's public surveillance eye on the street program from the 2 downtown cores and 13 cameras to somewhere in between 100 and 150 cameras. That would be covering some 12 kilometers of trails and waterways.
What are you hearing from people in terms of fears about, you know, Big Brother, too much surveillance, invasion of privacy, that kind of thing?
Well, you would think that this sort of enormous expansion, unprecedented in Canada really, would generate that kind of resistance, and there is a little bit of that sentiment in the public, but by and large there's institutional support for these ideas, because you're talking about children who are in some cases 13, 14 years old, leaving their communities, coming to an area they're experiencing culture shock, their parents don't know where they are, and there are enormous safety problems or risks and demonstrable risks for those students. And so there is what I would describe as a political consensus between First Nation leadership in Fort William First Nation, Anishinaabe Nation that represents the far north, and the city of Thunder Bay in terms of increasing lights and cameras along the rivers to change the way that activity that operates down there in general.
Jan, let me make an analogy that those of us who live in the southern part of the province may remember from 30 or so years ago. There was some trouble on the subway system in Toronto back then, and a group called the Guardian Angels came up from, I guess, New York City and said, we're going to sort of help the police keep an eye on how things are going here. And the police said, we don't want you here. And eventually they went away. Tell us about whether or not the Bear Clan Patrol has a good relationship with the Thunder Bay Police.
Well, the Bear Clan Patrol is an autonomous organization, and as John had mentioned, you know, Thunder Bay Police have been under investigation and how they handle their cases, and the most important part is that discussion, that public discussion, and it seems like there is a mistrust with police and the public. This patrol group uses Facebook to kind of connect with its members. And they get a lot of messages. They told me they get a lot of messages of people saying, I can't go to the police with this, I need your help. But also these communities, some of the members come from communities where they've had to respond to emergencies on their own. So Ivory Tuesday, she is the chair of the Thunder Bay chapter. She grew up in Big Grassy River First Nations. It was about 3 years ago, where she had to respond to a fire next door. 2 teens, she had to go in there, grabbed a bunch of clothes, wrapped it around her face, and went in there and saved 2 teens. Because when she called 911, they said, we can't send a local fire truck over because we don't have a financial binding contract to send one over. Their fire truck was under repair. So they're used to responding to emergencies like this, and right now the emergency is safety. So,
John, what have you heard from your perch about the nature of the relationship between the Thunder Bay Police and the Bear Clan Patrol?
Well, I've been out with the Bear Clan a number of times. When we have encountered police out there in the streets, they have been somewhere in between helpful and requesting information as to what's going on. The police recognize that this is not only an important program, but one that has broad social license. A note that the Guardian Angels actually did have an organization in Thunder Bay for a few years, and that sort of fizzled out, that was patrolling downtown core of the south side. So, you know, there have been a whole lot of attempted solutions and a whole lot of projects that are still underway. It's really reductionist to bring it down to what we're talking about in terms of how many things are happening to try to make this city safe.
Interesting. Okay, Jan, you've got a field piece that we're going to throw to here. What are we going to see?
I had the opportunity to join the Bear Clan Patrol for a night patrol, but I also got a chance to hear their personal stories as to why they joined the Bear Clan in the first place. These are their stories.
Great. Sheldon, go.
Almost got abducted by a cab driver.
All of a sudden, there's an egg that hit my face from the vehicle that drove right past me.
It's 9 p.m., minus 20 degrees Celsius, and the Bear Clan Patrol is meeting at Thunder Bay's Confederation College. On this night, the volunteer patrol group is heading to a local shelter to hand out hot drinks and snacks.
Do you want some chocolate bars? We got some chips too.
The Bear Clan Patrol started in Winnipeg, Manitoba's North End in the mid-1990s. The group has gained more traction after the murder of 15-year-old Tina Fontaine in 2014. Fontaine's body was found in a bag in the Red River more than a week after she was reported missing. The group has since expanded outside of Winnipeg with chapters in a dozen different cities, including Thunder Bay.
In terms of Indigenous governance, getting out there and trying to create this community that's can respond to each other. So we're out there focusing on what we can do now instead of waiting for external help.
Ivory Tuesday is the chair of the Bear Clan Thunder Bay chapter. She's originally from Big Grassy River First Nations in northwestern Ontario. She has experience dealing with emergencies. 3 years ago, she rescued 2 teens from a house fire after being told a fire truck from a neighboring city would not be able to respond.
I've come from, a rural community, and we're an hour and a half away from police or emergency services, so have a lot of experience with coming together as a community to address issues and emergencies.
Equipped with bright orange vests and flashlights, the group patrols neighborhoods known for violence and crime in high-risk areas like waterways. 8 Indigenous people were found dead in or near rivers in the city since 2000. The group is mostly made up of young Indigenous members themselves, many balancing busy university and work schedules. But the chance to build community and fight racial tensions in the city outweighs that.
I got involved because I got tired of seeing all these negative stuff happening to Indigenous people on the streets. And I wanted to help out and be an extra set of eyes, so I like it. I really enjoy it. You get to meet some new people, make some friends, build bridges, trust people. People trust you.
Many of the volunteers themselves have been victims. Kristen Redsky says a cab driver once tried to abduct her.
Was just going home from the casino, and I don't know, he must have thought, I wasn't, drinking or anything. I was tired and wanted to go home, and he took me the long way around, and he was actually heading towards the highway. So the next stop sign, I threw him my money and told him that I was gonna get out, so I just jumped out. And
They were laughing as they, after it happened, after, I'm wiping the egg off my face. It almost hit my eye. It was right here.
The Bear Clan Patrol is an autonomous organization. The Thunder Bay chapter is open to working with local police. But according to the Bear Clan, the city's most marginalized have lost confidence.
They have a hard time trusting police, and so they come to us.
The group uses Facebook as its main mode of communication to the public. Volunteers sift through hundreds of messages a week from people in distress or in need of help. But the biggest impact comes from being visible on the streets, tackling the issues facing Indigenous people.
Racism, it's a big problem in this city. It's one of the biggest ones in today's society, and I want to slowly change that.
What we do is risky, I guess, but at the end of the day, it's the fact that people are safe.
Okay. Guys, thanks very much for joining us here on TVO tonight. John Thompson from our Northwest Ontario hub in Thunder Bay, Jayan Jagannathan, the guy in the van who's seeing a heck of a lot of this province, and we'll see you guys again soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.